Hi, welcome. Today we've got Mike McGuire, head baseball coach, USC Upstate in the Big South Conference. I appreciate you spending some time with us today, Coach.
I appreciate you having me.
Sure. So tell us a little bit about the program there at Upstate.
Well, just in my second year, last year was obviously an abbreviated COVID shortened season. Really excited about my club, excited about the type of program I can build here. That's why I took the job here, after the 2019 season, having coached in the Carolinas for 17 years. I knew that obviously college baseball is at its mecca in the South, and the weather is more conducive for college baseball. And just I felt like USC Upstate was a kind of a sleeping giant, a mid-major program that had really good facilities, a school that went through the transition, was NAIA, D2, then went D1. And, I felt like a lot of things were in place to build a really good mid-major program that could compete at a very high level. And obviously adding the address, it's amazing what a difference the South Carolina address makes in recruiting, but really felt like a lot of things were in place, and we could compete, and hopefully very quickly. And so that's why I took the job here, and recruiting has gone well. Obviously we've benefited roster wise a little bit from COVID. I've got some guys back that, their career should be over, or they should be in professional baseball. But, I think a lot of schools in the country are in that same boat this year. It should be a very competitive year of college baseball, but I'm excited about our club and excited about the future of the program.
So you've got a pretty diverse background, coached at multiple levels, played at multiple levels. Tell me a little bit about your playing and coaching background.
Well, I went to University of Akron out of high school, had 2 really good years there. Akron was in the mid-continent back in those days. And, my second year there, we won 40 plus games, and mid-continent didn't have an automatic bid. And so that was found that rather discouraging, and really wanted to play in warmer weather, and went through the recruiting process again, and, chose between a couple of SEC schools, but ended up at the University of South Carolina. I was very fortunate to play on 2 regional teams my 2 years there, and a lot of great memories of playing in the SEC, but also very eye-opening for a kid that grew up on a farm in north central Ohio, and all once you get down here in, the South, and it's like, man, this is where it's at. And not only a lot of good baseball players, but a lot of good support. Pretty neat playing in front of 4,000 people, in a college baseball game. That wasn't anything I had ever experienced before, and was fortunate. I got done played a couple of years of independent ball, and knew I wasn't going to get to the big leagues, and wanted to get into coaching. And I'd spent a year as a student assistant at South Carolina while I was finishing up school, and that kind of whet the appetite for me. I was hired as a grad assistant at Morehead State, Morehead, Kentucky, and spent 2 years there as a GA, got my master's degree. And back in those days, a lot of schools had GAs and didn't have as many full-time assistants. So, I got thrown to the fire. I mean, I was a pitching coach and recruiting coordinator, and didn't have any experience with either one. I like to think I have a better idea of what I'm doing now than I did back in those days, but really loved it. From there, I was fortunate, got hired at Winthrop University by Joe Hudak, who built a great program there at Winthrop. And I spent 2 different stints there. I was there for 6 years, fortunate to go to a couple of regionals. Then I got the itch to be a head coach. I took a Division II job, Lander University, Greenwood, South Carolina. Peach Belt Conference, one of the best D2 conferences in the country. And that was, a great experience for me. I had that head coaching experience on my resume, but didn't want to spend the rest of my career at Division II. Winthrop approached me about coming back, and I went back for 6 more years, and then really reached the point that I was tired of being an assistant coach, and I took a junior college job at Lewisburg College in North Carolina. And that was kind of a storied junior college program that had kind of fallen on hard times. And, I felt like it was a place where I could compete for national championships. Ended up only being there 1 year. We were 52-9 and #1 in the country for a good part of the season. and the job opened up at Morehead State, where I got my start in coaching. Spent 7 years there at Morehead State, and the program had not been very successful recent history before I took over there, and it was hard. I mean, we struggled the first couple of years, but my third year we won the Ohio Valley Conference, went to a regional at University of Louisville, and really my last 5 years there we won 183 games, which is top 40 in the country during that time span. And that's a who's who list of college baseball. And then there's this mid-major that some people probably think doesn't belong on that list. But fortunate to go to 2 regionals, went to the regional at Clemson in 2018. 2019, we won 40 games. It really had a lot of success. But I kind of felt like we kind of reached the pinnacle of where we could get to. We had some challenges there as a program. And I looked at USC Upstate as an opportunity to build what we built there, but to even a higher level. Didn't have a lot of the obstacles that I faced there. And that's what excited me about this situation here. And I was very fortunate to bring my entire staff with me from Morehead State. And I think that has really helped in the transition here. We're all on the same page. We've worked together. A couple of my assistants played for me years ago. So it's a very good coaching staff that I've got. I'm very blessed. Good friends as well, and all hard workers, and that's what it takes to build a good program. And so I think our future is very bright here.
Sure. So one of the questions I get from parents is, hey, what are the events? Where do I need to have my kid at to get seen? What are some of the recruiting events that's been successful for you in maybe scouting or identifying some quality players?
Well, certainly a lot of the World Wood Bat events. We're regular attendees over there in Atlanta area. Seeing a lot of those. A lot of the PBR events. I think it helps a kid to attend a PBR event or a perfect game event just for no other reason that they're in their system, may have some video, because we get names all the time. And one of the first things we do is go on perfect game or go on PBR and take a look, see what video they've got, or see what measurables that those particular programs have rated them. But we recruit all over the country. So we get up in the Cincinnati area. I mean, the Big Flames tournament there every summer. It's a big event. We go to that. Down here, in our area, there's several good tournaments. There's tournaments everywhere. The Black Bears a really good event down here. They have a summer tournament as well as a fall tournament. It's in the Greenville, Spartanburg area where we can cover that, sleep in our own beds, which is nice in the recruiting process. We dabble with junior college stuff as well. So, we get out to a lot of junior college events. It's about looking at the schedule every week and say, which I need to see this kid, or particular teams that are traditionally good, but you haven't had a chance to see yet this summer where they're at, if they're playing in your area. So, but a lot of the perfect game events, the World Wood Bat, the PBR events, I think are important recruiting events to attend, and then sprinkle a lot of other strong tournaments that there are throughout the country.
So take me behind the scenes a little bit. You say you got a strong staff. You guys been together for a little bit. How do you guys approach the roles and responsibilities for recruiting? You got position coaches, you got recruiting coordinator, a head coach. Who does what? How do you guys roll that out?
Well, I think that my recruiting coordinator is Adam Brown. He's been with me for 10 years. At 3 different schools now, and so obviously our familiarity is really good. I think that's one thing that really helps is, and Kane Sweeney is my hitting coach, and also both of them do a ton of recruiting. I'm involved in recruiting, and I'll get out and go to events as well. I think one of the things that really helps our staff is we're very comfortable with each other's evaluations and comfortable with the type of player we want, what it takes to play for us, what works, what doesn't work. I think that helps just that familiarity in the first place. And then, it's not like Coach Brown just recruits pitchers because he's our pitching coach. I mean, we're looking for good players, and we're looking for good arms and projectable players. And so, we're all, out, and, we'll sit down and talk about, a weekend schedule and who's going where and who's going to see what and who's calling who and so forth. And certainly they make more phone calls than I do, but at the same time, I make calls. There are times that, they'll say, hey, can you call this kid tonight? And obviously I'll make those calls. And I think we're all involved. Coach Brown, spearheads it, but Coach Sweeney's equally involved. Coach Brown handles a little more of the bookkeeping, so to speak, which, you need a mathematician on your staff with figuring out the 11.7 and making everything fit under that umbrella. So, but I think it's a lot of communication that is key in recruiting, and that's where I think our relationships and comfortability as a staff really aids us in recruiting.
So maybe pull back the veil a little bit. You guys are done with your season. High school's done. You're getting ready to head into the summer, heavy recruiting time. What's it look like in the office? Do you have like a list of names? You got a board with, hey, these are the guys we're trying to get to. These are some guys we need to see. Tell us about how you kind of plan it out for that summer and what it looks like in the office there.
Well, we usually have a board going where, kind of by position, and certainly we've discussed and talked about our priorities and needs. Obviously pitching is always at the top of that board, but positionally, whether it's a year we need a catcher or whether we have to sign a high school shortstop and, or we need to sign a shortstop that we think sticks at shortstop. We all recruit shortstops. They don't all stick at shortstop. But we discuss that and talk about what our needs are. And then, as we get out and we're seeing events and seeing players and we're coming back, and if we like a kid, we think he's a fit for us, he goes on the board until, either he commits somewhere else or maybe expresses interest in going somewhere else, not interested in us, or if he commits to us. And then, the board is ever changing because we're seeing a lot of games. We take pride in how much we get out, how many events we see, how many kids we see. And if you look at my rosters over the last 5 years at 2 different schools, I mean, every year we're, feature a roster with kids from, 15 to 20 different states. My team right now, I've got 2 Canadians. I've got a shortstop from New Zealand. I got a right fielder from the Netherlands. So, I mean, we're all over the world, not just the country. We've got a couple Canadians coming in next year. So, we're expanding the globe, so to speak. We've got, my second baseman's from state of Washington. One of my starting outfielders is from Washington. So, part of that is just networking and getting kids out of certain areas in the past, knowing kids have come in our program and had good experiences. I think the experience the kid has in your program goes a long way in recruiting, because you look back, 2 or 3 years later, and there's another kid from the same area, maybe the high school coach or summer coach or junior college coach that you dealt with in the past knows that his player is going to go play for you. He's going to have a good experience. You're going to coach him up. You're going to take care of him. All those things come into play, and that's how you recruit from all over. You can't just expect them to walk into your back door, because you're not going to be very successful that way.
So looking back at the guys that actually end up in your program, are a lot of those guys that reached out to you or one of the coaches, or are you guys normally reaching out to those guys?
It's a lot more of us reaching out, or reaching out to coaches. They're, obviously I'm showing my age a little bit, but I've coached long enough that I've got some former players that are, coaching, whether it's the high school level, travel ball, or junior college. And so, you get phone calls or texts about, hey, I got a kid, I got a guy you need to get on. And so, and that's been really important, I think, in this COVID era where, we haven't been out on the road recruiting for, a calendar year. So it makes it tough when, you're looking at videos and things like that. So you really, lean heavily on those relationships. And, I've got a kid coming to play for me next year that, spent a lot of time under the tutelage of two of my former players. So that, helps me a lot, just to know that they played for me. They know what it takes to play for us, and the ability and mindset and mentality, and they're telling me this kid's a really good fit for you. So that helps a lot.
So you mentioned the COVID stuff. So what's the current impact? Just so people can hear it from a coach. What's the current impact on the rules as far as, like, let's take this year and then maybe looking at next year as far as roster size and guys coming back, and then also the amount of scholarship that you can offer guys as far as going below the 25%?
Well, right now our this year, for this spring, we have an unlimited roster, and I think you're seeing most schools, their roster's bigger. Next year we have a roster limit of 40. It's been 35 in years past. So, 40s to accommodate the fact that, the impact COVID's had. There's kids on your current roster, right? Whether it's at Upstate or other places that, are going to affect that. And I think that's the hard thing, the juggling act for us coaches. I've got several kids on my club that are juniors that should be seniors. And some of them are on pace to graduate. So, when they're debating, well, am I going to stick around and play my senior year? Well, how much playing time am I getting? What's it costing? What's my role? All those things are big factors, and they're hard decisions for us to make, because, obviously we've got to recruit as though a lot of them are going to be gone, but obviously there's some of them that we're going to say, hey, yeah, we'd love to have you back. And then that creates more of a log jam. So, it definitely affects us. It definitely is a managing of the roster that is more challenging than we've experienced in the past. And I think the biggest thing is just being honest with the kids. I mean, I think the kids on my club, they can look around and say, hey, we have 47 players right now. We're not alone. Most schools that have rosters similar to that. It's really easy to look at. I've got 5 seniors back that should have been done. I've got at least 2 kids, if not 3, that should be in professional baseball, but we had a 5-round draft last year, so they're back. So start doing the math. I mean, if those kids aren't here, we're our normal roster size. We usually go into the fall 35 to 38 players, somewhere in there, and it usually takes care of itself getting down to 35. So, there's a lot of ever-changing things and so forth, and I think that's where you'll see the transfer rule go in at the end of the year, where kids don't have to sit out anymore. And I just think it's probably the best thing for college baseball, because of a lot of kids are put in a tough spot. I mean, if you're a 2021 grad right now, you haven't been able to get much exposure. Coaches can't get out and see you play. Can't even visit with them on campus when they visit. So, what's a kid committing to? It's harder to have that relationship with a coach, I think, when you can't sit down and meet with them face to face. And, if they do come see your campus, they're just sliding through on their own. You hope they hit the hot spots because you can't show them around, those kind of things. So I think we're recruiting with a lot of question marks right now.
Yeah, I've seen I've heard some funny stories of coaches driving in the car in front, sticking their arm out the window, showing campus, or, walking the phone around and saying, hey, here's this. It got to be a little innovative.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, our staff, my assistants drove around campus on a golf cart and videoed, and, we got a bunch of videos that we send out to try to give kids a feel for what our campus is like, what our facilities are like. Because some of those kids are in places that, they'd love to come visit the campus on their own, but they do it, and now they got to quarantine for 14 days, so they can't afford to do that. So it's a different time.
So what about the rule? You mentioned the transfer rule. Is that a long-term rule, or is that just for COVID?
No, that's a long-term rule that I expect to go into place. It has been on the docket and probably would have gone in this summer. But with COVID, I think you saw that the transfer portal was overloaded already. And so that would have just added to it. So I think they delayed that for a year. Used to be that way years ago. And then they went to where you had to sit out a year. And then, that was, I don't know, that's been in place 10, 15 years, I'd say. And then now we're back to hopefully at the end of the year where the one-time transfers out and you can, transfer and play right away.
So when we're talking scholarships and looking at moving forward, it used to be a 25% minimum. I believe that's been lifted for next year. Does that give you some flexibility?
Yeah, I think it does. I think honestly, in the whole recruiting process, I mean, we're very fortunate here. We can give kids academic aid. Where an out-of-state kid can quite often get his out-of-state waived. So, I mean, a lot of times we're looking for a kid that can get some academic money in addition to baseball money. If we just have to do it with baseball money, it's tough to build a national caliber program. But if you can combine some academic money or some state lottery money in addition to baseball money, you got a chance to put good packages together and ultimately put a good roster together. So I think that kid that has done well in the classroom, we can get a combination. Some kids will get less than 25% in the future, but we'll get some baseball aid and it may vary a little bit from year to year. And I think at this point, we've learned that the more flexibility you have, the better it is to manage your roster, manage your numbers. And I think less than 25% is going to give us more flexibility in that regard.
Sure. So what about as far as the recruiting side? How early does it start for you guys following players? And then how early do you guys have offers kind of going out the door? I know it keeps getting earlier and earlier and it's harder and harder, but can you give us some general guidelines?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for us as a program, I mean, obviously being at the mid-major level for so long, most of ours happens, summer after a kid's junior year, maybe during the spring of his junior year, or maybe, there's a little bit of communication prior to that, but as far as getting serious, ready to make offers, that kind of thing, most of that happens summer, after their junior year of high school. To be perfectly honest, I'm against all the early recruiting that seems to happen. I think that's why you see the transfer portal overloaded. I think that kids are making decisions so early, and I understand that if you're committing to your dream school, but if you're not, I mean, I think it's hard to know. It's hard to know enough to know what you want to do, what you want to major in, let alone where you want to go to school when you're 14 years old. So for us, it's more of a about the junior year of high school is the time we will mess around a little bit with some kids that are maybe in their sophomore year, but most of it is summer after their junior year when we're really serious about it, and also we're comfortable that the kid is mature enough at that point to make a decision that is going to be concrete. Because that's the other thing is kid can commit as a sophomore, but he's still a year and a half away from being able to sign anything. So it is as far as the kid standing fast with that commitment and being comfortable with the relationship. I think it also, you hear schools all the time not renewing scholarship, and I really think that's bad business. It's something we try to avoid as much as we can. And so I think the more times we've had an opportunity to see a kid, the more comfortable we are that he's a good fit, he's going to play in our program, and he's got a bright future, the more likely we are to have very little issue in terms of a kid not making it. So I think the longer we can wait, the better. Kind of where recruiting has got. Sometimes it forces your hand a little bit, but we try not to get too carried away because projecting is difficult. I mean, to look at it, what a kid can do at 14 years old and try to evaluate what kind of player he's going to be at 20. I mean, there's a lot of distractions between, over those next 6 years that can change the outcome of, or the trajectory of a kid's playing career. So, I think the closer you can get to, their maturity level being up a little bit and entering college, the better off we all are with those decisions.
So talk a little bit about the difficulty of managing 11.7 scholarships. I mean, you're talking about, normally you got a 35-man roster, now upwards, but, hitting higher numbers. I think everybody thinks when they start this, hey, I'm going to get a baseball scholarship. And I don't think they understand how many guys that play, even at the Power 5 and mid-major levels, that guys who aren't getting any money at all, just built into the system. But how do you manage that and put that team on the field?
Well, I mean, it's a challenge. As far as, again, I think I said it before, but having some flexibility is pretty important. For us, sometimes, a kid may be on 25% one year and may go up a little bit, for a year and then go back down. Just depends on kind of what we have available. I mean, we're certainly not shortchanging the kids and giving them less than what they committed to, but having the flexibility to move it around a little bit. If a kid's financial situation at home allows for that, it certainly helps us. Obviously pitchers are on traditionally the biggest scholarships. They command more and obviously positionally, they're usually on less, but what I try to do is a lot of our position players have come in, they're not on big scholarships, but if later in the career, we can give them a little more money. If they've come in and had 2 or 3 really good years and I've got a little money, I can bump their scholarship up, but I'll try to do that. And I think that's one of the things that was attractive to me about USC Upstate was the ability to add some academic money with the baseball money and put good packages together. And, we're an affordable institution. So, if a kid can get his out-of-state waived academically here, then, I mean, right away, they basically got 33% right there. And that's no baseball money. And so that if I can give them some baseball aid on top of that, they've got a good package together. And I think that's our roster. Our roster's made up of guys that are probably, getting somewhere in that 40 to 60% range paid for. Not some of them, and none of it's baseball. Some of it's all baseball. Some of it's a combination of academic, athletic, or lottery, state lottery money. A South Carolina kid can get, lottery money. So adding all that stuff in, because at the end of the day, mom and dad want to know what it's going to cost. And, it doesn't matter if it's coming from 3 different, pies. It's just a matter of, what's the bottom line cost and is it affordable? Can my kid get an affordable education? And that's, I think that we can provide that situation here, especially if the kid's done well in the classroom. And I can't stress that enough. I've got, teenage daughters that, aspire to play college athletics. And we talk about it all the time that, that people don't realize it, but there's more academic money out there than there is athletic money, especially in certain sports. And ours is one of those.
So talk about, so your recruiting coordinator comes, you're having a coach's meeting, say, hey man, I got this left-handed pitcher, really, want you guys to see. I want you to hear some video to look at. When does academics come into play? When are you asking about that? When are you looking that up? Is that, when does that happen?
Well, it's usually immediately. If my recruiting coordinator comes to me and said, hey, I got a kid here, we're going to offer him this, he's going to tell me, hey, he's a good student. He's going to get academic money on top of this. So we're going to give X amount, but knowing that a portion of that is academic, or he'll tell me right away, he said he's not going to get any academic money. So I'll know, immediately, hey, we're offering this kid 60%. It's all baseball money, or we're going to offer this kid 75%, but he's getting 33% academically, something like that. That conversation will be had early on. And honestly, when we go see a kid in the summer or in the fall, whenever it is, and kid we're liking, and we'll talk to the coach and, say, obviously we're asking what kind of kid he is, what kind of person he is, how does he treat his teammates, and what are his work habits, but we're also asking what kind of student he is. You know, I want kids that I don't want to hold their hand and, you know, to get to class. You know, I want kids that want to get a degree. And, you know, sometimes, you know, the SAT, ACT sometimes is an indicator of a kid's a pretty smart kid. But, you know, I've had a lot of really good players that had good high school GPAs, but didn't have great test scores. You know, that often tells me a kid's not afraid to work to get the, you know, to get the degree, to get his grades. And a lot of times those work habits are very similar on the baseball field as well. So, you know, the grades are certainly can be a deterrent sometimes, but also make a kid more attractive.
So from a measurable standpoint, what's kind of the cost of admission to get either you or one of your coaches to come see a kid, not actually recruit a kid, but just to kind of, what am I needing at the different positions, and maybe just kind of walk through maybe pitchers, middle infielders, outfielders, corners, catchers. What's kind of the minimum cost of admission there? Like obviously a fastball for, you know, some velo for pitchers.
Well,
you guys
I think I think from a pitching standpoint, you know, we want to kind of know a kid's projectability. You know, I mean, you know, is the kid sophomore in high school? Is he 6'2" and he's got a full beard and you know, is he done growing, or can you tell, you know, is the kid, you know, 6 foot, $150? You know, parents or dad's 6'5". You think there's more in there, and you know, is he not shaven yet? Things like that. You just look at the physical projectability a little bit, and then you know, usually try to have an idea on the academics before you go see them. And but I think you know, from a stuff standpoint, a lot of it depends on how old he is, whether he's right-handed, left-handed. You know, obviously everybody's infatuated with velocity this day and age, but I think pitchability is more important to us. We want you to throw hard, and we think we're going to help you train to throw harder once you get here. But you know, a guy that can throw 2 or 3 pitches for strikes, you know, maybe has a secondary pitch that is a true out pitch, a swing and miss pitch, you know, whether that's a really good changeup or whether it's a really good slider to go with the fastball. You know, is he a command guy? You know, I think those are important. You know, I'd rather have a kid that's 88, 89 and fills the strike zone up with multiple pitches as opposed to the kid that's 93, 94 and but doesn't have anything to go with the fastball, and the fastball command's questionable. We have all those, but I'm just saying the guy that's filling the strike zone up with multiple pitches is the one that throws the most innings. And and I think that's what we're looking for is you know, where's the kid's velo at now? What's he project at to get you know, increased velocity down the road? How much is he going to grow? You know, how hard does he work? How much does he want it? Those are things you try to evaluate in a pitcher. Obviously, left-handed pitchers can get away with maybe not throwing as hard as right-handers, so we take that into account as well.
What about in the outfield? What are you guys looking for, or what would make you come see a guy?
You know, just reports that the bat's going to play. You know, that the bat's you know, whether that's an impact middle lineup bat or, you know, maybe a plus runner that's you know, can really throw from the outfield. You know, is his bat, you know, we're coming to see, is his bat going to play for us? You know, those are things that we're looking at. You know, really we want well-rounded outfielders, a guy that can play defensively, but, you know, going to make an impact with the bat as well. And, you know, I think your philosophy changes a little bit depending on who you play, where you play. My last job, we played in one of the most hitter-friendly ballparks in the country. Now I play, you know, our ballpark here is a beautiful ballpark. It's one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks in the country. So, you know, it's pretty big. I mean, it's important. It's much more important to me here at USC Upstate than other places I've been, how much ground our outfield can cover, how we can throw from the outfield. Those are important pieces for us here.
That's the first thing I did, man. When I showed up to park, man, I'm looking at the outfield wall as a pitcher, man. I want to, how much room do I got?
Yeah, exactly right. And so, you know, here our ballpark's pretty big. It's pretty spacious. So, being able to go get it in the outfield, being able to throw in the outfield are pretty important here. And we try to recruit accordingly.
What about behind the dish? It seems like catchers, man, the more coaches and travel guys I talk with, man, it's, the measurables don't seem to hold up as much for catching. Everybody talks about time, but man, I see so many showcases where, guys are throwing crazy pop times and you're like, well, that's just that's not true.
Well, yeah, the showcase pop times, a lot of times aren't real accurate. Kids are cheating. They're not really throwing the full distance, whatever. And to me, if you want to evaluate a kid's throwing, it's, what kind of throws he get off during a game, in live competition. To me, that's more of an indicator of how a kid can throw back there. But really, if you talk about receiving, blocking, and throwing in terms of priority for us, receiving or throwing is definitely third for us. Guys got to receive. We want to get strikes and we don't want to give away strikes. So receiving is extremely important. And then, ability to block, keep the ball in the circle, that kind of thing is second for us. And then, throwing is third. And, you don't have to be Johnny Bench, in terms of throwing. At the same time, we can't just let them walk into second base either. So, we don't get too caught up in the pop times, but, it's a guy that's 2 flat, 2-1, consistently in there. He can catch for us and do a good job, and we can be very successful with him. We're going to bank on our pitching staff doing a good job controlling the running game. And it's so much of it for a catcher when it comes to throwing is out of your hands anyhow. I mean, pitchers are 1/6 to the plate. I mean, you're not going to throw them out. If you don't get a good pitch to handle, if every breaking ball guy throws in the dirt, well, it's going to be tough to throw guys out with that. So, controlling the game behind the plate, receiving and blocking is important. And then, if a guy can impact with the bat as well, then that's a big plus as well.
What about on the corners? What are you looking for in the corners? A lot of guys have different strategies here.
For me, if you play first base, you better hit. It's an offensive position. I mean, you can't be an abomination out there defensively, but it's an offensive position you need to hit. And then I think corner infield, it's an offensive position as well, but it's an important, being able to field the short game is important. I mean, being able to make the routine play, having the arm strength, across the infield is important in that part of the evaluation. But I think those are both more offensive positions. Ideally, those are guys that are going to have an impact with the bat. But the defense is going to matter. And then obviously up the middle, we want to be really strong, short second behind the plate and center field. I think those are priorities, and being able to defend in the middle, being able to turn the double play is really important.
So when you're looking at corner and you're looking for maybe a little bit of pop, some power, can you get that from just looking at guys' measurables? The guy's got an exit velo, upper 90s or something like that. It seems to me like power or being able to actually hit gaps or hit the ball out of the park. I mean, it almost seems like a visible thing, because you never know what field guys are playing on when they, you can't really trust the stats. I mean, it's almost like
right.
A guy.
Yeah, I mean, we don't put a ton into exit velo measurables or we're against launch angle, as a program. I mean, one thing that hasn't changed from when my dad followed baseball and got me into baseball and to where now I'm coaching baseball is, line drives still work, and really that's what we want is we want hitters that, are going to have a swing that, produces a high percentage of line drives. As he gets bigger, stronger, more physical, bat speed improves, those line drive singles become line drive doubles and home runs. And I think that's what you're trying to project when you're recruiting is, does the swing work? Does the swing have a lot of holes? We don't like to recruit a lot of swing and miss. guys that find a way to get the barrel to the ball. And if you watched our guys, I mean, our lineup would have 9 different stances, and nobody looks like they're cloned in any way, because they're not. Try to recruit guys that have some ability to find a barrel, and any changes we make, are subtle ones that we're trying to help them repeat a good swing path, a swing that's flat and in the zone as long as possible. And guys that put good swings on and get stronger and develop bat speed to develop more power. And as I said, we talked about our ballpark. I mean, it's a pretty big ballpark. So, we're a ballpark that we should hit a lot of doubles. We should hit a lot of triples, even if you're not a plus runner. I mean, if you got some pop, you're going to hit some triples here. And so, that's really what we're looking for. The one-dimensional hitter probably doesn't have as much value for us as maybe does other programs, just because of how we're built and the environment we play in.
So walk me through a little bit of the communication process. How does that typically work? How does it start with a player? And then what's the normal progression from, email to phone calls? How often does that happen? And then who are they talking to first? And then how's it end up?
Well, usually whoever they're talking to first is whichever coach on the staff, probably saw the kid, maybe liked what they saw, or whichever one of us maybe got a phone call from one of our contacts that we trust their opinion, and we'll make that initial contact just to find out. So sometimes you get a phone call about a kid, and maybe he's not from your area. Maybe you find out that our school's too far from home, and you just soon find that out right away, as to be into the process very far. But usually, it varies as far as which one of us reaches out to them, during initially, and then kind of gauge the interest. The more we see them, it kind of changes our interest, positively or negatively. And then that usually determines how frequently the phone calls are from there. And, obviously when we get around to where we're ready to make an offer to a kid, then, we're on the phone pretty regularly at that point in time. Email's not involved a ton as far as our communication with a kid that we're recruiting. Certainly when it's making offer time or helping the parents to understand the financial side of it, when exactly what the scholarship is, the email generally to them kind of helps them to understand it all, because there's so many parents out there that it's their first time. They've never had a kid go through it, so they don't understand it at all. So I think the more you can educate them in the process, the easier it is for everybody. But yeah, I would say it's more phone calls, more text, some occasional emailing. Obviously, early on in the process, if kids young, it's primarily email, because it's camp invites, because we can't really call those kids. But usually one of the assistants or myself will make the initial call, and then if it's not me that makes the initial call, then usually at some point I'm getting involved in the conversation, but not always. I mean, it's changed a lot due to COVID, with this stuff, and kids are having to make decisions without seeing campus, or sometimes they even make that decision at schools without talking to the head coach. So you kind of see it all different ways.
How do you guys implement visits now that they've changed that rule to where underclassmen can't make unofficial visits? Has that impacted the ability for guys to kind of get a good feel for, what campus looks like? How do you guys implement visits, both unofficial and official, and kind of bringing kids on campus?
Well, I mean, obviously during COVID, nobody can visit, period. They can do it on their own, whatever, without, they can't meet with a baseball coach while they're here or anything like that. But pre-COVID, the kid, honestly, the recruiting happens prior to a kid being able to take an official visit more often than not. So most of the visits are unofficial. It's usually, and the unofficial visits usually are shorter duration. I mean, we're fortunate where we're located, especially in the summertime, that kids are in the area playing a tournament, or they're going from traveling from the East Coast to Atlanta. They're going to go right through Spartanburg, South Carolina. So, hey, we're going to stop by on the way through, on the way back, check out campus. And that's kind of how the unofficials go. They're usually short. They're usually fairly last minute and so forth. But what we usually do, maybe a kid commits to us, and then we'll have him, come, once he enters high school his senior year, and sometime that fall, bring him in for an official visit. He's already committed at that point, but it gives them an opportunity to spend time with the players, the coaches, and just kind of spend a little more time on campus than what they get to when they make an unofficial visit. But that's one of the negatives of all the early recruiting. Is used to be when I first got into coaching, you didn't make a decision until you made an official visit your senior year of high school. Now those decisions are made prior to being able to make those officials. So the value of the official visit in our sport is a lot different than what you see in football and basketball, where they're taking those officials and making a decision. Our decisions are made before that most of the time. And then, there are some outliers, and if the kid's able to, come in for a visit his senior year of high school, and we're still recruiting him at that point, or a junior college kid, we can get him in on a weekend, spend time with them, spend time with the players. I like for kids to spend time with the players if they can. I mean, I think players aren't going to be as players. And I think that they can ask those kids, what it's like to go to school there, what it's like to play baseball there, what's the coach like, is he good to play for? Is he an SOB?
That's the real question. Hey, what's he really like? Not recruiting you.
Yeah. So, and I think that's one of the things. I have two of my former players are my assistants here, Kane Sweeney and Pat McGuff. So, I can't be too bad to play for. They wouldn't be coaching with me.
Hey, Coach, you've been at a lot of different levels. Any interesting recruiting stories stand out to you over the years that you can share publicly?
I'm trying to think. I tell you, this wasn't really a recruiting story, but it was really interesting. This is back when I was coaching in another institution, but there was a local high school tournament going on in the area, and we were, we're getting ready to. We had a game later that day or the next day or whatever. But it said, hey, I get a phone call from a scout and said, hey, we got a high school kid. We need to work out on your field. He's playing in this tournament. Well, we got to work him out. We need a place to do it. Can we do it? And I'm like, and they didn't tell me his name, or anything. And so like, hey, yeah, we can, I can arrange that. I mean, we can set the field up for BP. You guys can work this kid out, I said, so next thing I know, there's like 18 scouts, pulling up to watch this kid take BP, and like, who the heck is this kid? I've never even heard of him. It was Javi Baez. So,
oh, wow.
It was pretty cool. Kids 17 and putting an absolute show on in batting practice, to do that. And but anyhow, obviously you stay in the game long enough, you recruit long enough. And I mean, you've had kids that you think are going to take a long time in the recruiting process. And I mean, they commit to you on the spot, and you had some that you think they're ready to pull the trigger. And it's like pulling teeth and takes months. So seen a little bit of anything and everything in the whole recruiting gamut.
So, Coach, if we got a player and they're looking at multiple schools, why USC Upstate?
Well, I think one, we're going to get a great education here. One of the great things academically is our size. We're about 6,500 students. It's a good sized Division I school. You're not going to get lost in the shuffle. Our average class is about 20 kids in a class. Professor's going to know who you are, going to know you're a baseball player, going to know that, hey, you weren't in class on Tuesday because, we were playing at Clemson. And when you get back to class Thursday, they're going to know how you did. And I think those relationships go a long ways in the classroom. We play a good brand of baseball. Our coaching staff track record is, we win and we compete at a high level. We've been very successful at other stops, and there's no reason we can't be equally as successful here. We're going to play a great schedule every year, playing, with a heavy dose of SEC and ACC opponents, as well as being in a location where early in the year, in typical years, we can get Big Ten teams on our schedule, Big East teams on our schedule. So really, we've got great facilities here, everything you need as a player to develop and hopefully get to the next level, we've got. And I think that our track record as a coaching staff is, we're able to develop guys. I say it all the time. It's, the player you are is when you step foot on campus, can't be the finished product, because if so, you're not good enough. We got to continue to get better. And as a coaching staff, we're going to push you to get better. But, we want kids that, mentally have that approach that they want to play beyond college. And, if that's the carrot that dangles, then we have very little issue as far as work habits with a kid. So, but I think it's a great place to play. Obviously, I just put something on social media today, sunny and 55 today on December 28th. I mean, let's play ball.
For sure. Mike McGuire, head baseball coach, USC Upstate. I appreciate you spending some time with us today, Coach.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.